Steve here with Alloyed RPG. In this episode, we will be discussing magic and mages. Like and subscribe. Now, magic is one of those things that is integral to tabletop RPGs, in my opinion, right? You can do things with magic that are cool that you can't do with other things. You can have a sword, then you can have a magic sword, and that'll do different things. And it's that fantasy world that we all grew up on, you know? However, I think lately the games have skewed way too magic heavy. And when that happens, it sort of makes it really kind of mundane. So Alloyed RPG brings the fun back to magic, but we handle it in a way that I think is very different than most other tabletop role-playing games. Alloyed RPG treats magic as gear, and it's stored in either a staff or a wand. You can carry both. They do take up slots just like any other gear would on your character sheet. And probably the best way to think of magic, like a staff, is a gun that you load with bullets that do really cool things. If you decide to use a staff, a starting player can have up to 3 magic per staff with a total of 10 as the campaign progresses. If you decide to go with a wand, you can have starting with 1 magic per wand up to 3 total. There are some advantages to carrying around a smaller thing like a wand versus a staff. And of course, you can use both of those items as regular sticks. You can poke somebody with a staff, you can poke somebody with a wand, whatever it would be. But an empty wand or staff still takes up 1 gear slot. So you might as well have something loaded onto it. Since magic is treated as gear, it does take up the gear slots, as we've already mentioned. So as you're going along on the campaign, if you find some really cool magic that you want to add to your repertoire, it's going to be at the expense of something else. So you may add that to your staff, but then maybe the rope has to go, or the grappling hook, or whatever. So you only have 10 gear slots, use them wisely. All magic is cast by rolling a 1d20 plus your mind plus your spirit against that subject's target plus their specified ability. So if they're defending with their body or whatever, or their mind or whatever it would be. A failed cast is still counted as a cast. So when all of the magic's casts have been used up, that particular magic remains on the staff or wand, but is deactivated. So it can't be used again during that session. It still takes up a gear slot unless you choose to discard it. So that can all be reactivated, exchanged, or acquire new magic at the end of a session, when characters return home after a campaign or whatever, and per the GM's discretion. Rolling a natural 20 is always a very fun thing in any tabletop RPG, and so with Alloyed RPG, rolling a natural 20 while you're casting magic does something pretty cool. On your character sheet, there is a mastery track. There are 2 of them. One is for normal weapons attacks. The other is for magic. Now, when you roll a natural 20 during a casting of magic, you add 1 to your mastery track. When your mastery track goes up to 5, you can take one of those magics on your staff or your wand and add them to your character's natural ability. That way they are permanent, they are part of your character's abilities, and then the mastery track gets reset to 0 again. You can do that up to 3 times, so your character over time can actually have 3 magic abilities added to their sort of core character abilities. That's kind of neat. But beware, as cool as natural 20s are, natural 1s can still happen, and when you roll a natural 1 while casting magic, you have to consult the natural 1 list just like any other attack. You roll a 1d4, and that corresponds to one of these 4 not so good things that can happen to you. Treating magic as gear is one of those things that makes Alloyed RPG a little bit unique, because it really levels the playing field. You can still be a magic user. If you decide that instead of a bunch of gear, you just want to keep loading magic onto your staff at the expense of other stuff, then you can become a full-blown wizard or mage or whatever it would be. It's just that you can't have everything, and that's kind of life, you know? And so I really like that aspect of Alloyed RPG, that you can choose to dabble in it, or you can choose to be full-blown head over heels magic. The other thing too is that as you go through the list, there is a pretty extensive list of magic that you can load onto your staff or wand. And there's also the option, of course, to create your own. Now, it's up to you between the GM and the players to decide what kind of is appropriate magic to use or to create, but it's certainly open to create your own homebrew stuff for sure. Now, one thing with the magic is that it's almost always specified the number of casts that it's good for, and then the duration of that, whether it's a round or a turn or whatever, how long that lasts. Because remember, it's treated as gear. It's like loading bullets into a gun. When you shoot it, it's done. So sometimes you might have 2 shots, 3, maybe it's just 1. But once that magic is used, it remains inactive on the staff or wand. It still takes up a gear slot. And again, you can reactivate it at the end of the campaign or at the GM's discretion. One of the main tenets of Alloyed RPG is that we encourage imagination over calculation. So that does open up for some things to maybe not be done perfectly the first time. So if you find that a character creates a magic that might be too strong, too powerful, whatever, the GM can always call for affliction, which means that that character has to roll at disadvantage when using that magic. It's just a little bit of a stopgap to get you through the session until you figure out how to tweak that thing to make it useful and fun at the table. Well, there you have a brief overview of magic as it's used in Alloyed RPG. I think once you get into the game, you'll find that this is a very fast, very fun way to engage players and give them a little bit of fun to play with as well. So thanks for watching, and may your dice always roll with advantage.